with those in power, that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight I'm joined by Stella Sada-Kidu, who's a former Labour advisor. Also got Theo Usherwood, who's a former LBC political editor. The Green Goddess, she's back on the programme for the second time. Also got Philip Blond, he's a former advisor to David Cameron, and top celebrity chef Jameson Stokes. But first, let's go to the news.
Very good evening to you. It is just coming up to 1 minute past 7. And first, the top story. It's sport, and the opening ceremony at the Paris Olympics is now underway, featuring around 10,000 athletes. And it's the first time the event isn't taking place inside a stadium. Lady Gaga's been rehearsing ahead of a performance which is rumoured could also feature Celine Dion. Thousands have gathered along the banks of the city's river for the official opening of tonight's games. It's going ahead as planned, despite some concerns over security following attacks on the country's high-speed railway, causing travel disruption today. The athletes have been seen parading along the river with boats in the ceremony taking place outside of a stadium for the first time in the event's history. We were hoping to cross live to our reporter Sophie Reaper, who is there for us. If we do manage to connect with her, we will bring that straight to you to get the reaction from the scenes of that opening ceremony. But plenty more coverage on the Olympics throughout the rest of this evening. Well, an alternative healer has been convicted of manslaughter after a diabetic woman died when she stopped taking her medication at his slapping therapy workshop. Hong Chi Zhao, who has no medical qualifications, preached the benefits of hitting yourself to rid your body of toxins. Danielle Carr-Gom, who was 71, had been following his instructions at a Wiltshire retreat in 2016. Here, the Mayor of Greater Manchester has appealed for rigorous and swift investigations into criminal allegations of assault by police at the city's airport this week. A video shared online shows an officer kicking and stamping on the head of a man. The police watchdog is now looking into the incident to determine whether his use of force was acceptable. Well, let's cross live now to Sophie Reaper. She's joined us on the banks of the river in the French capital, hopefully with a bit of an update on what's going on. Sophie.
Well, the opening ceremony is well and truly underway now here in Paris. You can hear the music here behind me. The rain is coming down, but it isn't dampening spirits. I think so far we're up to Canada. They've made their way along, and soon we will start to see the boats coming past us here on the Seine at the Eiffel Tower. We've heard Lady Gaga perform as well, which was absolutely phenomenal. And all eyes are going to be waiting for Team GB to make their way past us. All of our athletes were so proud of them ahead of their performances here in Paris for the Olympic Games 2024.
Sophie, thank you very much indeed. You've certainly got the best seat in the house, but nothing on Lady Gaga or Celine Dion. Have a fantastic evening. See you a bit later. Well, in other news today, a rapist who threw a boy off a cliff to try to cover up his crimes has been sentenced to life in prison. Anthony Stocks raped and sexually assaulted a girl multiple times between 2019 and 2022. When she confided in a boy, Stocks threw him off a cliff. Miraculously, he did survive, but continues to suffer ongoing health issues. The perpetrator was convicted of a number of crimes, including attempted murder and rape. He'll now spend at least 19 years behind bars. And finally, before we head back to Lee, drivers are being taken for a ride when filling up at the pump. That's according to the AA, which is calling on the government to take action. It comes after the Competitions and Markets Authority issued a report that found fuel prices were significantly above historic levels. But independent fuel retailers say their critics aren't taking account of costs like wages or electricity. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Sam Francis. Your next update at 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight I'm joined by former Labour advisor Stella Sadikidou, and I've got the brilliant Theo Usherwood, who's a former political editor at LBC. We're going to get straight to it, guys, tonight. The Labour Party have come out the traps really quick on the immigration crisis, the asylum process. Labour said they're going to sort this out. They started by making an announcement over the Bibi Stockholm. They're going to close that down. They're going to fast-track asylum claims. Theo, is this going to work?
It remains to be seen whether it's going to work. Look, what they're trying to do is two things, Lee. They're trying to take the heat out of the situation. So they're closing down the Bibi Stockholm. It was, of course, subject to a number of challenges. There were huge problems with it in terms of Legionnaire's disease and, of course, fire safety on board the Bibi Stockholm. So Labour, the government wants to take the heat out of the immigration debate. And also, you know, I'd point you to, you'd have seen some of those Home Office memes, cards on the internet where they talked about irregular migration rather than illegal migration. They're trying to dampen down.
What's the difference?
Well, I think the word illegal is seen to be more contentious. I think it's seen to be more inflammatory. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to dampen down the debate so it's not such a, immigration isn't such a hot topic, and then get to the business of trying to sort it out. Of course, they've shut down the Rwanda scheme, and they're also planning to overturn a clause in Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman's Migration Act, which basically Lee had the effect of meaning that if you came to this country by a small boat, you would have no right to claim asylum in this country. And the argument that Yvette Cooper was making in the House of Commons was that this had created a huge backlog of 100 to 120,000 people just stuck in the system, and that in a perverse way it acted as an incentive because the smuggler gangs were able to say to those charging, you know, $2.5 a time to cross the channel, you can come to the country and you're just going to be stuck in this system because they're not going to process you. Now, the figure that I found extraordinary to come out of the House of Commons was that there's a projection, this came from Yvette Cooper, that within 4 years' time, the whole asylum system would cost the government, cost the taxpayer, you and me, your constituents, Lee, 30 to 40 billion pounds.
Wow.
Because it's just, more and more people are going into the system and not coming out of the system. So their solution is to take out that clause, but that then gives the right to anybody who arrives by a small boat to claim asylum in this country. And the Refugees Council's own numbers put the success rate for those claims at around 62%. So that means that around 70,000 people in that backlog are going to have successful claims to stay in this country.
Not a good start, Stella, for the Labour Party, is it? This, like Theo's just said, 60 to 70,000 of the people already in the system are pretty much guaranteed to get their asylum claim passed and stay in this country.
What are you comparing these figures to say that this is a bad start? I think this is an excellent start. This is exactly what they needed to be doing within their first 100 days. The numbers that you are suggesting are not bad for a country the size of the UK. Let me remind you, I come from Greece. We have a lot more than those arriving on our shores. And just because the UK, the previous government, wanted to do something illegal, basically, and stop accepting refugees completely, doesn't mean that the problem of refugees stops being the case in the current international context, right? So I would say it's a very good start. And as Theo said, it's very important that the backlog is there.
Stella, can I just ask you a question, please? You talk about refugees. Do you think these people coming over the English Channel, who we sometimes bill as being trafficked by the evil gangs, Are they genuine refugees that fleeing a war-torn country and persecution? Because the last time I looked, it's pretty peaceful in France, apart from sometimes in Paris when it kicks off.
As you just said, it's just 62% that get accepted. So the rest of them don't get accepted. They get denied asylum. Now, I'm sure you would agree that if someone has family in the UK and if they speak English, that is a very good reason why they would want to come to the UK and stay here, right?
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree that a refugee who already has family members here would be much more able to assimilate?
I thought the idea of fleeing persecution in a war-torn country was to go and be safe, not worry about whether or not they speak the English.
Do you think the refugees during the World War II, do you not think that they wanted to come to the US? Because they had family.
Well, I know families of refugees from the Second World War. I used to work with many sons and grandsons of the Eastern European refugees down the pits when I worked down the coal mines. And let me tell you, when their grandparents came from places like Latvia at the end of the war, these were displaced people, by the way, who'd been forced to fight for the Germans. They then had to come back because they didn't go back to their villages. They could not speak a word of English. They came here, they learnt the language, they assimilated, and they made good lives for themselves. But they genuinely feared for their lives.
I think there will be a lot of refugees who genuinely feared for their lives as well. Look, I accept your point. There are a lot of people who want to come here as economic migrants. Yeah. I take that. This does not make them bad people. I understand that you want to live in a world where immigration is not a thing.
So they are economic migrants then?
There are some economic migrants there, for sure, 100%. And a lot of them are going to get their applications denied.
Yes, but
a lot of them will get deported back to wherever they came from.
So where do we send? I mean, Yvette Cooper's been asked time and time again. If you get an illegal come over the channel, they turn out to be from Afghanistan, where we don't have a returns agreement with, and they get their asylum claim rejected. Where's the Labour Party going to send them to?
Yeah, if they come from Afghanistan, there is a very good chance that they are genuine refugees, though. You understand?
No, but what if they're not?
Then you will need to have an agreement with the rest of the European countries, because if that person doesn't have any good claim, then they should go back to the country that they initially came from, so that they initially entered through. Sorry. This is why you need to have an agreement with the rest of the European countries. However, you are still talking to me about a tiny number of people. So I am wondering why, with all of the massive problems that the UK has right now, do we need to worry about a handful of people at the same time when we are in need of workers for jobs such as construction work?
Listen, Stella, this is not a handful of people. I'm going to come back to Theo because he needs to have his say. This is not, you know, when you've lived and worked here all your life, as I have, as my parents and my grandparents, and you've paid into the system, and you have made this country into the great country it is, the last thing you want is people coming over here taking advantage of not just our asylum system, our legal system, our housing, our benefits, our healthcare. This is what winds people up in this country.
I understand.
Theo, I'll come back to you.
So if you are granted refugee status, having gone through the asylum seeking, it is at that point you have the right to work and you have the right to claim benefits.
Yeah.
And and this is recognised in the Labour Party, by the way. I don't think this is a particularly contentious issue. Is that if Labour finds itself at the next election in 5 years' time, and we know that as well as taking a significant chunk out of the Tory vote, there were also signs that Reform UK was taking large chunks, particularly in the northeast, out of the Labour vote as well. Yeah. And it's recognised, I think, in number 10, we've heard people like Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, allude to it as well, that if this problem becomes so big, and it continues to be a problem, then that is only going to add succour to people like your leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, and of course Richard Tice. So I think there's a recognition that this needs to be dealt with. Now the problem, which I think can be predicted, is that if you are giving, let's call it 62%, which is what the Refugee Council is saying. Yeah. The problem is that if you say to the gangs, right, they recognise, they know the system as well as anybody, we would imagine. That's why they're able to take advantage of it and operate so effectively. And of course, they need to be smashed, as Keir Starmer says. Nobody denies that. But if they're able to say to somebody, right, £2,500, and I'm going to give you a 6 in 10 chance that when you get to the UK, you're going to be able to say, I would predict that's quite a good sell from their point of view. 6 in 10. You're going to be able to stay in the UK.
The good news is, Theo, if you do get rejected, you can just go missing.
Well, yeah, that's a huge problem with detention, and that was always a problem. And I remember speaking to people within the Border Force about this, senior people in the Border Force, and that was always a problem with the Rwanda scheme, the premise of the Rwanda scheme, because the Home Office would write a letter, and this was the argument. If I write you a letter and I say, "Dear Lee, in 10 days' time, I'm going to turn up at your hotel and I'm going to deport you to Rwanda," what are you going to do?
Clear off.
Precisely. And they didn't have, you know, they weren't, the Tories, and this is just because of the system, they weren't able to back it up with detention centres.
Got about
there aren't enough
30 seconds left. I can see Stella's chomping at the bit here. Come on, Stella, come back at me.
So I agree this is a big problem, and Labour is aware of that. That's why Labour is going to smash the gangs.
What does that mean?
But for less than 2%, the Rwanda scheme, for the amazing price of 7.7 billion.
We're not talking about the Rwanda scheme.
Over
We're talking
the next
about what
years,
is Labour going to solve this crisis?
It was going to deal with less than 2% of asylum seekers. There is such a thing as a problem that is too difficult to deal with completely. The problem is that governments, to appease voters and to appease people from the Reform Party, the previous government, the Conservative Party, because they were just thinking about their electoral success, spend all of their times completely neglecting all of the other massive problems this country has.
Oh, there you go. That's a great discussion. Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Theo. Coming up next, we've got a roundtable discussion on Just Stop Oil.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And this week, it's disabled adventurer Nick Wilson and rock engineering director Elliot Dason-Barber from the Institution of Engineering and Technology.
Yes, earlier this month, Nick Wilson summited Mount Snowdon unaided. The first time this has been attempted with the help of an engineered electric mobility chair called the Rock Climber.
Tell us what you did, when you did it, and why it's so amazing, because it's the first time this has been done, isn't it?
You feel lazy, you should try being me, going up a mountain and I was just pressing the accelerator. these poor buggers had to go and come up behind me. It still hasn't sunk in properly, you know, and to be the first disabled person to do it during Disability Pride Month is... I couldn't have asked for anything else. But it's all possible because of Rock Engineering. You know, they've been working on this for the past 2 years to create this machine. I wouldn't be here because I was struggling a lot with loneliness and isolation. I was very suicidal, and they literally saved my life with this project.
The whole thing came around by accident, you know, meeting Nick, and he kind of highlighted some issues to us in terms of his accessibility, and he you know, he lives in Toaster near where we're based, and he came down the high street and sort of said, I can't even get into the shops in the high street.
So, Nick, you just mentioned that the kind of place you were in before doing this, you were lonely, suicidal. Yeah. What was it like when you finally managed to scale Snowdon? Because I've done it on foot, and just being for anyone, being in nature and fresh air.
The one word that I think I've used throughout this is freeing. It is when you're so reliant on drop curves. It's freeing that you're not reliant on a hard-standing path or drop curves, wherever. You can, in rock climb, you can literally go anywhere you want. Yeah. And freeing is the big word, and it's amazing.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Philip Blond, who's a former advisor for David Cameron, and Stella Sada-Kidu. Have I said that right? I'm sorry.
Well
yeah, very well. Look, a quick discussion. This week we saw these eco-loons, the lunatics, Just Stop Oil. A few of them locked up. I think it was 5 years some of them got locked up. People are fed up with these, Philip, these lunatics, you know, bringing our lives to a standstill. I think they've got their just desserts. What do you think?
Oh, I think for the level of disruption that they caused, the indifference they showed to the general public, they did real harm. They prevented people from hospital treatment, and they were wholly indifferent to it. So I think that for their persistent, willful breaking of the common good, yes, I do think they got their just desserts. What worries me about police and enforcement is it's so unclear. We had in the same week people kind of responsible for assaults on women, rape, various forms of violence, essentially getting away with minimal restrictions or punishments. So I'm all for strong action against people who attack the general public. But that's what I want across the board, not just selective.
So we've got Stella here. Stella's from Greece, as we know. How would the Greek authorities, the police force, the judiciary deal with these sort of agitators back in your country?
You don't want to use the Greek police as your standard for how you want this government to be governed, this country to be governed. You can do better than that. Don't worry about Greece. We have our own problems. What I would say about people here, and again, like in Greece, political protest is quite different. And I think violent protest, we should be harsh with violent protest. When someone is breaking the law, we should be prosecuting them. But I don't think that non-violent political protest is the same as the crimes that you were just talking about, Phil, like rape and murder and all of these things. These are completely different. And the average person understands that. And of course, the average person is very frustrated with the disruption. I'm frustrated with the disruption as well. I don't think that they are always getting their aims achieved through these means. But there is an understanding in our society that political protest, there is a special allowance that we have for political protest. And this is because throughout the history of the world, we had seen over and over again that there are times when political protest has been used for things that now we are very grateful to have achieved.
Philip, do you want to come back on that?
Well, look, I think that the level of disruption that people like Just Stop Oil are doing, and hitherto had largely got away with, polarises society and does great harm to the common good, from attacks on artworks to wholesale blockages of public transport, with many people being harmed by that. I think that deserves harsh punishment when it's persistent and when it's done with the degree of foresight and indifference to public need. All I'm saying is we need to apply that level of consistency across the board, because many people feel that those who do actual violence against the person in some ways are subject to less stringent measures. So my only argument is for consistent return to clear lines across.
Look, Stella, we've got Hyde Park just a few miles away. We've got Parliament Square there. People are out there. They were out there yesterday demonstrating. Peaceful, yeah, they were making a racket, but that's their right to do that, make a little bit of noise outside the mother of all parliaments. Surely that's the way to conduct yourself when you're protesting. If you don't
make any noise, how are you going to get the headlines? And look, once again, I don't necessarily.
Are you condoning this behaviour?
I do not condone this behaviour, no, but I do think that it needs to be tolerated, like a lot of other things.
What, blocking motorways?
There are a lot of things that I don't condone, right? I do not condone.
So you're just say, for example, you're a family member, have an accident this afternoon, you're on your way to the hospital, you've got blue lights on, and the motorway is blocked off by Just Stop Oil.
Yeah, that is disgraceful. I would be really ashamed of myself if
Should they go to prison?
No, because it's not just Stop Oil. It's also farmers who are doing the same when they go and they block the MI5, right? Am I correct in saying that?
MI5, yeah.
M25, sorry, yes. So do you think the farmers should go to prison for blocking the roads when they do that with their tractors?
When it's persistent behaviour with this level
should the farmers go to prison?
That was a one-off, Stella.
Should we send the
when it's persistent behaviour that harms the public good, and it polarises society. So you have a small minority exercising power against a majority, and it's akin to public disorder. It's akin to widespread public disorder. It polarises society and destroys consensus in society, and indeed it harms their own aims. And I think if you do that persistently with willful intent, yes, you should go to prison.
You said we need to be consistent and we need to apply this across the board. And you said, what would you do if your mother was dying and you needed to take her to hospital? That can happen from a farmer blocking your road once. Do we send farmers to prison?
But Stella, Phil's made a good, reasonable point there. The farmers do it once every 10 years.
No, they don't do it
These
once
lunatics are out every week.
You asked me about Greece. They do it every year in Greece.
Every year. Well, we're not in Greece, are we?
Should I send the farmers to
But
prison?
you said earlier we shouldn't take lessons from Greece.
Should I go back to my own country and ask my government?
I'll just end on that note. Thanks, guys. Joined now by Philip Blond, former advisor to David Cameron. Good to have you in the pub. Cheers, young man. Quick sip of that. So, look, we probably come from different backgrounds. I'm from, some people would say, the north of England. It's actually the North Midlands, coal mining community. And the political geography back in the day when I was growing up, my dad was at the pit, then I went down the pit after my dad, it was all those soft southern Tories and we're our tough socialists in the north. That sort of political geography, Phil, that has changed, that's been flipped on its head over the past 10, 15 years.
It has indeed. I mean, I born and raised in Liverpool, so I was around kind of the genuine falling apart of working class communities and the inability of the state to do anything about it. And what we've seen, not just in Britain, but in America and across the world, is that the working class have shifted from left to right. And they've shifted from left to right because left-wing parties have been captured by the upper middle class. And they pursue progressive agendas that pretend to look after the interests of working class people, but essentially promote the interests of upper middle class. And across the West, from Trump to Rassemblement National in France to Meloni in Italy, the working classes have moved to the right, and the right either aligns with the interests of its new voting class or doesn't. And in the case of Britain, the Conservative Party remained a Liberal Party and got roundly annihilated at the polls, largely in part because of that.
Yeah, but is there any difference, do you think, Phil, between the Labour Party at the moment and the Conservative Party? I mean, George Galloway made a comment a few months back about two cheeks of the same, not say the last word, it's too early, but I thought he was pretty spot on with that.
Well, largely, yes. We've been governed by Liberals since the time of Mrs. Thatcher. We've been governed by economic liberalism and social liberalism. And the disaster with David Cameron is that the last vestiges of social conservatism were abandoned and we embrace social and economic liberalism. Now, what this means is that essentially the needs, the collective needs of those in the bottom half of society were ignored, abandoned. Mass globalization, mass migration, cultural security, economic security is no longer an option for ordinary people in this country. And what that then means is that the ideology that animates both left and right is indeed the same. And we desperately need a new alternative, but the current parties cannot deliver it.
Phil, that's a great chat. Time's up. Another sip of your beer.
Oh, thank you.
Coming up next, we've got right versus left. Cheers.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Signs of some hotter weather early next week, but still tomorrow morning a fresh start with some sunshine, and there will be more heavy showers developing through the day in places. But the showers we've seen today, they're tending to fade away. So for most, it's going to be a dry evening, a dry night with lengthy clear spells. We'll keep some showers going near the southwest of Scotland, and it could turn a bit heavier, that rain, as we head towards dawn time. As we head towards dawn, temperatures will dip down to single figures in some rural spots, towns and cities 10 to 12. So a little bit fresher than recent mornings, but generally a fine and sunny start. A drier day tomorrow compared to today across Scotland. Still a few showers in the far northwest, but I suspect quite a bit of sunshine across central and northern Scotland. A wet start, though, in this zone. The far south of Scotland, northwest England, some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the lakes early doors. Not great on parts of the M6 here. A few scattered showers for Wales, but most of England and Wales also starting dry, fine and sunny. There will be a few showers for Northern Ireland, but again here, likely to be a drier day tomorrow compared to today, so not as many showers around. We will see more showers developing through the day over Wales, Northern England, parts of the Midlands. Could catch a rumble of thunder, flash of lightning too. Not too many showers for East Anglia in the southeast. Most places here dry, and as I mentioned, a drier day for much of Scotland. Slightly warmer too, Edinburgh up to 21 in the sunshine across the southeast, 24, maybe 25, but probably feeling cooler across northern England and Wales with more cloud and more showers. But the showers disappear overnight, And Sunday looks like a cracking day. Can't completely rule out a shower over the Northern Isles, where there'll be a bit more of a breeze, but generally light winds, plenty of blue sky. A fine summer's day on Sunday, and it's going to get a bit warmer, and signs of things also hotting up a little bit, particularly across the south into the early part of next week.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, it's time for, well, it's normally right versus left, but this week we've got a special twist to the show. We've got green versus red. We've got the right side of politics versus the wrong side of politics. Welcome back, Stella. And we've got the legendary Dinah Moran, Green Goddess, model, just all-round brilliant woman, I think. But Stella's not bad either. It's great to have two women together at this part of the show, and I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a woman in 2024. Now, you're more senior than Stella in years, but you can remember what it was like a few decades ago being a woman in this country. How have things changed?
Things have changed a lot. I am 85, and so I remember, obviously, my mother and her friends when I was a little girl, and life was totally different for them.
Yeah.
Totally different. A woman was more or less expected to be at home if she could, work permitting, but that was the most important thing. And she obviously looked after us children, but even more importantly, she looked after the man in the family. And he came in, having done his day's work, put his feet up, put his slippers on, and that was it.
So a woman's place was in the kitchen back in the day, but it's not now, is it, Stella?
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely not. And also,
Stella.
you
Sorry,
did call
Diana.
me Stella.
Sorry,
I'm not
Stella.
quite sure why. And also, when you think about it, my mother and her generation would have washed things by hand and then used the, what do we call it? The washboard. Washboard and all that business, and then hung things out on the line. Well, that could take a day to get anything dry after that. Nowadays, you just plonk it in a machine, close the door, and 2 hours later, it's all done.
So, Stella, have you ever used the old scrubbing board?
So my mother used to have one in the village where she grew up. So I've seen one. I've seen my mother use it. I've seen my grandfather and my grandmother use it. I can't remember using it myself.
Okay. So obviously, like I said before, different culture in Greece where you grew up. And how does that compare, do you think, for the women that were growing up in the UK?
Feminism is a lot more accepted in the UK than it is in Greece. This is one of the, I would say this is an important factor for me wanting to stay in the UK rather than go back to Greece. Obviously, things are improving back home in Greece. Feminism is coming everywhere. But there is a lot more sexism. It is difficult being a woman in public life in the UK, for sure. And I see that whenever I go on media, I do get a lot of sexist comments and a lot of people commenting on, you know, my appearance or the way I speak in a way that I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be commenting about.
What did they say to you, Stella?
So I often feel like they will pay a lot more attention, negative attention on me as a person, whereas I will go on the videos of male commentators like myself, and all of the comments will be about the content of what they are saying, about their arguments, about the topic that is being debated. Whereas you go under a video of me, and there are so many comments about where I'm from, the way I speak, what I'm wearing, how I look. A lot of people make comments about my nationality, but I'm not saying that to say things are terrible here. Things would be much worse back in Greece for a similar person like myself. When you're a woman in public life in Greece, you have to make do with men on media actively saying sexist slurs in your face, and you are not allowed to react because then you are not seen to be a good sport.
So,
my goodness, things have changed here because, I mean, women here in business, in politics, I mean, they're accepted as they are, strong women, as long as they, you know, can voice their opinions, they're accepted all
I think that's it, Diane. I think in this country, you know, women do have to fight a little bit harder still, I think, to get on in public life.
But if they do get on...
If they do, they are very well respected. And I think Maggie sort of started this back in the...
She did.
Yeah, I don't think she was all that much for women's rights as such, but she just proved that a woman could get to the very top by being strong.
Yes. She set the mark.
Yeah.
And women, certainly women of, I'm starting obviously at my age to know them at 60, 40, and they are strong women in the jobs that they're doing. And you listen to them and it's great. And these young ones, well, they're going to grow up with the expectation that anything is open to them, which is good.
Of course, you look at Kamala Harris, right, and the comments that J.D. Vance, the vice president nominee for the Republican Party, made about her being a childless cat lady. And it does make you think that even a woman who is at the absolute height of her career across the world, such a powerful woman, she cannot get away from the judgment of being female and just not having had kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're involved in this group for people of a certain age. That's the U3A. I know we've got one back in Ashfield, actually.
Good,
and I've got many friends who go to this organisation, and it's been a lifeline for them.
It is superb. I've just come back from York, and they've had their first ever, what they've called a festival, Festival 24. And they've got 400,000 members across the UK. Yeah. And for the first time, they've all come together, and it's just wonderful. Their mantra is learn, laugh, and live. And it's for people over, shall we say, about 65 who finished full-time employment. And there they are. They can do all sorts. They can do fitness, they can do politics, they can do genealogy. It's absolutely fantastic.
Well, you're certainly making me laugh, Diana. Delhi, I mean, I think we're pretty good in this country, how we treat our pensioners. Not everybody would agree with that, with the amount of state pension they get, etc. But the clubs, the support they get, and great family networks. There's lots of stuff to do for
There's
pensioners.
Plenty out
What
there.
about is it the same in Greece?
I think that's one place where Greeks are a bit better because we have more of a community feeling, and we our families,
and your families are tighter,
closer. Yeah. So I up until my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I used to go back home every summer and stay with him at his village for a few weeks, and I don't have a lot of British friends who would find it to be a good time to go and spend, 3 weeks in a tiny village on a Greek island with an elderly man.
Chances are that your relatives are in Australia or somewhere else around the world. UK people, we move around so much.
Rightly or wrongly, we have a culture in this country, and I've noticed a difference over the past 30, 40 years, Diana, where back in the day, Grandma or Grandad used to live in the parlour or the back room.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and you'd go in 3 times a day, give them a bit of food and switch a TV
or
on.
very close by, but you had to visit them at the weekend.
But now we put them in care homes, and is that sort of culture in Greece?
We don't really have, care homes are very rare. With great difficulty, I don't know many people who put someone in a care home.
Do you know, I work a lot with the care homes, and I'm just talking generally now. They can be fabulous places. Really, really superb. Obviously, they've got warmth and they've got food, but then they've always got all the social side.
They have friends. Yeah, you can make friends.
Yes.
Because you no longer have. So my grandfather in his village, he would have other people who were his friends, but you can't have that, for example, in London. So I think it's great to be, out in the fresh air.
So you can have a great social life in a care home.
Say that to me again.
You can have a great social life. I'm looking forward to it already.
Yes,
book me a place in.
And there's romance in the care home.
Oh, I like that.
Yes,
lots to look forward to.
I can't wait. I can't wait to get in. Look, we're going to do the yes/no quiz now.
Gosh.
You've not done this before, have you?
No, help.
I know Stella's not done it, so it's dead simple. Ask you 5 questions, and all you've got to say is yes or no.
That's difficult.
Yeah, you just got to say yes or no. And then at the end, you can come back on one of the answers and give your reasons for giving that answer. So we're going to go with you first, Diana. Will Trump win the US election?
No.
Stella?
No.
Is it time for the British police force to get tough?
Yes.
Stella?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Stella, this one for you. Will Labour solve the migrant crisis?
Yes.
Diana?
No.
Right. Diana, will Reform UK win the next general election?
Yes.
Oh, dear. Stella?
No.
Wow, this is... Right, this one's for you, Stella. Will Starmer last the full term?
Yes.
Yes.
I do not believe it. 5 each. Novices, first time ever doing the yes no quiz. We've got people like Stephen Pan comes on, who's absolutely useless at this.
Amateur.
He's been on like 20 times and never gets 5 out of 5. So if you're watching Stephen, quickly come back on one, Stella.
I want to come back on the police. They need to be tough, but they need to be tough with themselves as well. They need to reform. They've done a really bad job.
Okay.
The public don't trust them.
Okay. Diana, do you want to come back on one?
I'll come back on reform.
Yeah.
I would love to think that they're going to go even stronger and get even better.
Yeah.
I realise that the numbers are down, but just get out there and
there you go.
keep at it. Keep
It's
at
a
it.
record 5 out of 5 for Stella and Diana. Thanks for joining us on the Yes or No quiz. After the break, we're going on the poll with celebrity chef Jameson Stocks.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Tom, dying to talk to you about this. Transport for London, right? They run the buses and tubes and things in London. And they've got £2.5 million. £2.5 million, which they're going to spend on what?
Diversity training. I dare say they've probably got plenty of it already.
But let me tell you something. I sit on a board of a company and... I was diversity trained recently.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
And I must admit,
What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you, it was like stating the bleeding obvious.
Yeah.
Right? So you sit there and you say, well, why would I do that? Or why would I treat someone like that? I wouldn't do that in the first place. I don't need to be trained in this. And you just sat there for 6 hours while people told you the obvious. But what do you think of spending that amount of money for Transport for London?
It's crazy because, on the one hand, do we need this diversity training? The TfL is an incredibly diverse workforce already. The idea that there are barriers to entry there doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Also, as you say, these things are commonsensical, really. And to the point, sometimes they can become problematic because they're not just saying, you know, be open and tolerant of people and so on. It's actually preaching a more kind of divisive sort of rhetoric to people, which can be a big problem in the
You get your
workplace.
diversity training from your boss or somebody, don't you? Somebody pulls you up and says, you don't talk to people like that. This is how you talk to them. That's it. Done.
It should be that
spend
simple.
6 hours in front of...
And I know that in the grand scheme of things, £2.5 million is kind of money down the back of the sofa. But at the same time, my local tube station just closes early on random nights of the week because of the fact that they haven't got enough staff.
4 years ago, there were 655 people at City Hall earning over £100,000 a year. People might argue that's 655 too many. There are 1,100 now. 4 years later.
1,100?
Actually, 1,142 to be precise.
The People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Last orders at the bar with a TV celebrity chef. He was a bit of a god back in the day on the box, doing cooking and all sorts of stuff. Cooked for some really famous people. But what got you into cooking, Jameson?
Well, I actually left home at 13 and I actually came down to London because up north you couldn't really find hostels and stuff too well. But I actually lived on the streets, so shop fronts, gardens, benches. And then almost as I got to kind of 15 and a half, 16 years old, obviously I could get a job. So I managed to get a job with Marco Pio White.
How did that happen? I mean, on the streets, in a sleeping bag, going to work for a top restaurant?
Well, I actually went to the Waterstones in Piccadilly and I actually just looked at the top restaurants in the UK.
Yeah.
Went to the Landmark, went to John Burton Race, went to Ramsay's, went to a lot of places, got rejected. Went to the Oak Room in Piccadilly, got a job.
Doing what?
I went straight into the kitchen. I went straight into like preparing vegetables. I went straight in. I mean, it was pretty hardcore.
Pot washing?
No, straight into the kitchen.
They must have seen some potential then.
I think I was just kind of driven. I was pretty driven. I mean, I'd lived on the streets for a long time, so you know, I had that in me to want to obviously make money. And
when did your big break come?
I obviously had to wait for a month until I got money.
Right, okay.
And there's quite a well-known chef now in America called Brendan Collins who saw me sleeping rough, and he actually helped me, and he actually lent me some money.
Guardian angel.
He is, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen him for a long time, but he's pretty well known in America now.
Wow. Fast forward a few years, you become a top celebrity chef, obviously earning a few quid, and in the building today you've got a couple of good-looking lads there. One's got a similar hairstyle to you, but you've been a single parent. You are a single parent.
Yes.
I was a single parent for many, many years, so I could sort of see where you're coming from. It's a great thing, isn't it?
It's amazing. I love it. I mean, I've had both boys full custody since my eldest was 2, my youngest was 1.
Yeah.
They have no interaction with the mum whatsoever. Okay. They never met any of my family because obviously I left home. And yeah, it's the most rewarding thing in the world. I love it.
And you've done a bit of writing as well. You've got a cookbook out.
Yeah, cookbook's coming out. I originally was working on a previous cookbook, but because I'm doing more stuff in America now, they actually wanted me to try and fire a quick one out before that one. So I'm going to try and do back-to-back books.
Back in the day, people would make, not better meals, I would say, but wholesome meals, much cheaper.
Yeah.
They'd shop around for the ingredients because they had to. You couldn't get a ready meal.
Nope.
You couldn't go to a takeaway. You think we sort of lost a lot? We lost a lot of learning, haven't we, on that turn?
I think these delivery services have kind of killed the wholesome home cooking now, because you just ring them up, use an app, they're at the house within 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but with de-skilling, I bet you're teaching your kids how to cook, aren't you?
Well, they actually do it at school as well.
Yeah,
I think it's quite important to be part of the curriculum that they learn to cook.
Because what we found out when I was helping out at the food bank, we was giving people food parcels, and the fresh veg, the fruit, and they were throwing it away. And
Crazy.
Keeping the tin stuff, the box stuff, the ready meals. But actually, if they had the know-how, they could make better meals with the fresh veg.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, we did try a bit of an initiative with the food bank where when people came for the food parcel, we said to them, oh, yeah, you can have the food parcel, but you must register on this cooking course, and we're going to teach you how to budget as well. So go to the supermarket and buy these ingredients, bring the ingredients back, and then we'll show you how to batch cook and make meals.
I think it's super important.
But I got absolutely slaughtered in that place over there in Parliament for suggesting it, because we made, they call me 30p Lee, we made 174 meals for 50 quid. And this is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it worked out at 30 pence a portion. It was batch cooking on an industrial scale.
Yeah.
But the point we was trying to prove is that if you get the right ingredients and you know what you're doing with a bit of help, you can actually eat much better and much cheaper.
Well, I found that because I work with a lot of homeless charities, that when people are on the streets, all they tend to know is how to open a sandwich and eat basically rubbish food. Yeah. So when the government and people actually help them get into an abode or a hostel or some sort of accommodation, they have no clue on how to cook.
Wow. You'd make a good teacher at school, wouldn't you, for teaching kids how to cook?
I love teaching people. I love showing people because that's my passion. But, you know, I'm not... Even though I trained at the high-end Michelin-starred level, I appreciate home cooking and nutritional food, especially for children.
So you've got 5 minutes to cook a really delicious, scrumptious meal on a budget. What would it be?
Fish pie.
Yeah?
Fish pie. One, because my children love fish pie.
Yeah.
And it's nutritional.
Yeah.
And it's filling. And it's just full of goodness.
Oh, sounds good. I've got to tell you, you've got my taste buds salivating.
It's full of goodness.
We've got a lady in the building sat over there. There's had a few fish pies in her time. Diana, do you want to come over, please, darling?
I would
and
love
just come this way, Jameson.
because fish pies are my favourite. Any of my friends watching will tell you that.
Well, then,
as long as we've got nice, fresh vegetables.
Of course, yeah.
So, back in the day, you'd have witnessed your family, maybe your mother or grandma, I would assume, making wholesome, delicious meals on a budget, rather than this rammel that we're putting out now. Like Jameson said earlier, you can just pick your phone up, you've got an app, and get some rubbish delivered to your door, which is actually no good for you.
No good at all. I was brought up in the country. I'm a Somerset girl, really. Somerset born and bred. And, of course, it was wartime as well.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go to the shop and buy rubbish like they can do these days. So it had to be what was available. We grew vegetables in the garden and fruits and things, of course, as well. And it was basic food. There was no choice. You fussy little girl, no way, Jose. And I sat there. My father would make me sit there till I'd finished everything on the plate.
I'm the same with the boys.
And I love everything nowadays.
They either eat what they get or they're going to bed hungry.
Exactly.
Well, there you go, there you go. Sounds a bit cruel, that. They're sending hungry children to bed.
Well, they eat it because they appreciate it.
Exactly, they have to.
Yeah, if I said that, I'd be in trouble. Right, on the pull, you've got 30 seconds to pull a pint, Jameson. It's that tap there. I bet you've done this before, haven't you, because you've worked...
Oh, a long time ago.
Go on then, let's have a look. And then Diana, a.k.a. the Green Goddess, is going to judge this. He's an expert. Look at this, Diana.
I'm not an expert.
You are an expert.
I haven't done this
before.
in years
You've
and
been
years.
But you've had more experience than I've had, I can tell you.
I don't drink, so...
Oh, you don't?
I don't, no.
You don't know what you're missing.
There we go.
So if you plonk that on the bar, Jameson...
That
and,
looks perfect,
we're going
I
to get
have to
Diana
say.
to pull a pint as well. Yeah, darling.
OK, here we go.
And you've done this before, haven't you?
Only once with you in another pub.
Yes, yes. That's it. Wrist action is correct. You've got the right tilt. What's your favourite meal apart from fish pie?
Well, the drink is champagne.
Is it?
Champagne girl here.
No, anything fishy. I'm a fishy girl.
So what fish would you put in that? Anything?
Salmon, any white meat.
Yeah.
The salmon's quite reasonably, as long as it's sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, it's not...
I do like the... I like the sea bass.
So do I.
I love sea bass.
Yeah, I do.
I only like wild fish, really. I try not to go near farm.
Yeah, what sort of fish would you put in a fish pie, Jameson?
Well, I like to use salmon.
Yeah.
I like to use wild fish.
Yeah.
Sea bass.
Wow.
Whitefish, cod. I mean, anything flaky and nutritious.
So it's an important thing you said there, James, about the wild fish, because I was talking to somebody just a few days ago about farmed salmon and the diseases and the conditions that they live in. It's not good. A lot die. They're full of infection, horrible, nasty stuff.
Bacterial. It's terrible. I mean, I wouldn't go anywhere near it, personally.
So I'm a believer that your sort of tastes change over the years. From being a child up until my 30s, I would never really eat fish, but now I love mussels.
Yeah.
Now I'm in London with the jet set. I had some baked oysters last week.
Very nice.
Baked in like a garlic butter. Oh, they were to die
Love
for.
oysters.
And all that sort of seafood. I'm sort of getting into it now. So I think my tastes change.
I think it's like anything. I think you have a cycle in life. Every 7 or 8 years, your taste buds change, your friends change. You know, you move on. So it's...
And it's very nutritious.
Yeah.
Fish is very nutritious.
Brilliant.
And it doesn't put on the weight.
No.
But I never get the calamari. I never understand that. It just tastes
I had
like
calamari last night.
Yeah?
I did, yeah.
I like that as well.
Anyway, I want to mark your pints. I'm going to say to Jameson, and I've got to give him 10 out of 10, Diana, because it was a cracking pint. Diana, slightly less.
Why?
I don't know. I'm going to have to give you 9, maybe 9.5. So
Isn't that 10?
yeah. So
no, there's only one winner.
There's only one winner, but doesn't she look fabulous? 8
Amazing.
And I've got to say, Jameson, your boys are a credit to you.
Thank you.
And any advice out there for For men, because it's a struggle for men sometimes, and they all of a sudden become a single parent.
It's a lot harder for men than it is for single mums.
Yeah, why do you say that?
I think that support-wise, I think if you're a single mum and you give your career up and you bring up your children, you're seen as a, you know, a strong person, etc. But
who's been abandoned?
Yeah, there've been you know, the dads get a bad rap. Not in all cases.
Yeah.
But in my case, I find that there wasn't a lot of support, really.
Yeah. Mate, you've done a cracking job, haven't you?
I just did my best.
And I bet your kids are very proud of you.
I hope so.
Diana, it's great to have you back on, my friend.
Oh, I've
looking
loved
beautiful.
being with you again.
Mate,
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything you do, mate.
Good to meet you as well. Oh, even better.
I'm even a kiss as well.
Oh, this.
There you go.
Can I come back again?
Yes, you can definitely come back again. That's great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me again on Lee Anderson's Real World. Been another cracking show with some great cracking guests. But coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live with the legendary Mark Dolan. Mark Dolan, what's occurring?
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Signs of some hotter weather early next week, but still tomorrow morning a fresh start with some sunshine, and there will be more heavy showers developing through the day in places. But the showers we've seen today, they're tending to fade away. So for most, it's going to be a dry evening, a dry night with lengthy clear spells. We'll keep some showers going near the southwest of Scotland, and it could turn a bit heavier, that rain, as we head towards dawn time. As we head towards dawn, temperatures will dip down to single figures in some rural spots, towns and cities, 10 to 12. So a little bit fresher than recent mornings, but generally a fine and sunny start. A drier day tomorrow compared to today across Scotland. Still a few showers in the far northwest, but I suspect quite a bit of sunshine across central and northern Scotland. A wet start, though, in this zone. The far south of Scotland, northwest England, some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the lakes early doors. Not great on parts of the M6 here. A few scattered showers for Wales, but most of England and Wales also starting dry, fine and sunny. There will be a few showers for Northern Ireland, but again here, likely to be a drier day tomorrow compared to today, so not as many showers around. We will see more showers developing through the day over Wales, Northern England, parts of the Midlands. Could catch a rumble of thunder, flash of lightning too. Not too many showers for East Anglia in the southeast. Most places here dry, and as I mentioned, a drier day for much of Scotland. Slightly warmer too, Edinburgh up to 21. In the sunshine across the southeast, 24, maybe 25, but probably feeling cooler across northern England and Wales with more cloud and more showers. But the showers disappear overnight, and Sunday looks like a cracking day. Can't completely rule out a shower over the Northern Isles, where there'll be